I'm Dr. Meredith Hancock, the president of Thomas Edison State University. We're the university that respects your learning wherever it occurs. This is Edison Soundstage, a podcast where we discuss the dynamic role of education in today's world. We have meaningful conversations with business and community leaders and with our students who are actively engaged in their professions and communities, all while earning a degree that builds their careers, advances their professions, and empowers their lives. Recorded and produced on our campus in Trenton, New Jersey, this is Edison Soundstage.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Edison Soundstage podcast, where we discuss the ideas shaping our world and our university. I'm Katie Brommer, Assistant Director of Digital Communications here at Thomas Edison State University, and today we're tackling one of the most critical conversations at the intersection of technology and security. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing everything from how we diagnose diseases to how we create art. But it's also fundamentally changing the cybersecurity landscape. And I don't just mean in good ways. We're seeing AI-powered attacks that can adapt in real time, deepfakes that can fool even experts, and automated systems probing for vulnerabilities at machine speed. So who better to help us understand this digital arms race than someone who lives and breathes this stuff? Joining me today is Dr. Henry Collier, Dean of our School of Science and Technology, and an internationally recognized expert in the human firewall, artificial intelligence, and networking. He currently leads a global research initiative examining the cultural factors that influence susceptibility to cybercrime, which we'll definitely get into today. Dr. Collier, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you having me on today.
Since this month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, this conversation is especially poignant right now. There are really three main things that I want to cover with you today in terms of threats, defenses, and emerging concerns.
Absolutely.
So to get started, for our listeners who might not be in the tech world, can you paint a picture of how AI has changed the cybersecurity game in just the last few years?
AI has come into the landscape of cybersecurity with a vengeance over the last couple of years. We've seen many different changes in the environments. We've seen how the implementation of AI is being used. We've seen how the readily availability of AI is being used. Originally, we always talked about AI as being a great way to defend a network. We could use AI to automate our defense measures. We could use it to improve our defense measures, while at the same point, we're realizing that the threat actors would be able to use it to attack us in a much more effective and efficient manner.
Is that the kind of thing that we're seeing right now?
We're seeing a lot of AI-generated attacks that they have a significantly higher probability of being successful for a variety of reasons. Whether it's a social engineering attack that is literally you cannot tell the difference if it's an attack or not, or if it's malware that's been created by AI that is designed to penetrate a system in a way that's unknown, a zero-day attack type scenario, and get past the current methods that we use to detect that within software, or simply just from the perspective that AI can be used to send hundreds of millions of attacks all at once. The automation component. So it's a pretty significant threat within the world of cybersecurity, and it's going to be our conundrum for the next decades to come.
You mentioned social engineering, a common traditional cyber attack method. Can you talk about what AI-powered cyber attacks look like? How do they compare to more traditional methods?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to start with the social engineering because that is truly, where I do all of my work, right? I'm very interested in the psychology-based component behind social engineering. Why do people become susceptible? And when we understand the reason why people are so easily tricked, it's easy to understand that, okay, this is a complex problem. People are easily tricked because they have behaviors, they have emotions, they have cultural influences that all influence our decision-making process. If I am a social engineer or a threat actor and I target an individual's specific behavioral, emotional, or cultural aspect, I've increased the odds of my success. I'll give you a great example. If I was a bad guy and Betty White was still alive, I would be one rich bad guy because I would literally take her love of animals and use that against her. That's how I'm going to push her button. right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about how it's used on other things, like, so if I want to target a government employee, right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to target them Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock or 4:30 as
Mm-hmm.
they're getting ready to leave for the day, when they are distracted by what their weekend is going to entail. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also going to attack them on Monday morning when they first come into the office and they haven't quite cycled up to get going, because their mind is
Mm-hmm.
still on all the events of the weekend. So they,
Okay.
again, they're distracted. So I really, as a social engineer, I really, really look for those things. I look for, what is the highest probability? I want the emotional response. I want that
Mm-hmm.
sense of urgency. I want
Mm-hmm.
that sense of authority. And the sense of authority is a big one because that is cultural. It is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely cultural. There are many different cultures out there that have deep respect for authority no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And as a social engineer, I can use that to target somebody and be successful. Now, the way that AI is being used in the world of social engineering is it is taking what we used to see as attacks that were fairly easy to determine were probably bad attacks if you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of broke down the email or anything to that effect. They are significantly enhancing it. AI is significantly enhancing those attacks. I'll give you one example is the grandparent scheme. The grandparent scheme
Mm-hmm.
basically is I call you in the middle of the night pretending to be your grandchild saying, "Oh my God, I'm in jail. I need you to send me some money."
Mm-hmm.
What grandparent's not going to send their grandchild bond money to get out of jail?
Mm-hmm.
$500, whatever. They're not even going to think twice
Yeah.
about it. If they've got it, they're
Yeah.
going to send it. Now, historically, it was a little easier to detect that this was false because the callers had a thick accent most of the time. And this was especially effective for those elderly people who wore hearing devices. And if they weren't wearing it when they're sleeping, because nobody ever does, they're not
Yeah.
going to necessarily be able to hear that there's an accent or hear that the voice isn't like their grandchild's voice.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to hear the words.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with AI, all I need is about a 10-second snippet of a TikTok video of your grandchild talking.
Oh, jeez.
And I can use AI to clone
Yeah.
that voice, and then I can
Yeah.
sit on my keyboard, which is connected to my phone, and I can
Mm-hmm.
type in my conversation, and guess what? I am your grandchild.
Oh
For
gosh.
all intents and
Yeah.
purposes, I am your grandchild. It's,
Yeah.
consider it a deep fake of the voice, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And if I want to attack with, a video, right, I
Mm-hmm.
could take that same TikTok video and I could
Mm-hmm.
create a complete clone, voice and image, and attack you that way if I wanted.
Yeah.
And it would
That's
increase my
terrifying.
success rate.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to distinguish. So
Yeah.
in that particular case, what I recommend people do is they create a safe word or a
Mm-hmm.
safe phrase, something that cannot be looked up on social media of any
Mm-hmm.
kind,
Mm-hmm.
something that is not easily identifiable. I can't look at
Mm-hmm.
what your social media is and determine, oh, you've been in the military for so many years, da 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 da. I bet you that your safe word has to do with the military, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something to that effect. Because believe it or not, we tell people more about ourselves just by how we dress and how we act than you might imagine. Several years ago, I gave a demonstration. I was talking with high school students, and I turned to them. I said, "You guys understand how easy it is to figure stuff out about people, right?" And they're like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, no." I turned to a young man and I said, "Let me guess. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that your password has
Mm-hmm.
to do with Michael Jordan and David Beckham."
Mm-hmm.
And the kid's face just went pale white. I said,
Yeah.
"Don't tell me your password. Just tell me, am I correct that one of those two is in your password?" And he
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Yes, sir."
Oh boy.
And I said, "Now, would you all like to know how I figured that out?" And they were like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah." I said,
Yeah.
"Well, his shirt has FIFA on it, which
Mm-hmm.
is soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the top soccer player at the time? David Beckham.
Yeah.
And he was wearing Air Jordans."
Mm-hmm.
So now, could I have gotten it wrong? Absolutely. That's what social engineers do. They kind of take
Mm-hmm.
that risk and try to determine. They
Yeah.
usually get it right because we do predict this kind of stuff all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so it's very scary because you take that and you add AI to it. It makes it really hard to do. I gave a
Mm-hmm.
presentation this past summer out in at the German Artificial Intelligence Institute in Kaiserslautern, Germany, and it was all on how AI is being used in the world of offensive cybersecurity operations from a social engineering perspective.
Offensive.
And
Okay.
Offensive,
Yeah.
totally. So
Okay.
this is a nation state actor targeting
Mm-hmm.
another nation state and using AI with their social engineering attacks to gain access.
Okay.
And I demonstrated a variety of emails, ones that were known phishing emails and ones that were created by AI to make it a better phishing email. And the
Mm-hmm.
subject matter experts in the room could not tell which ones were actually phishing attempts when they were AI generated.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That they're that convincing.
Yeah.
And so what I tend to tell people is, hey, if you weren't expecting an email, don't
Mm-hmm.
trust it. Just
Yeah.
simply don't trust it.
Mm-hmm.
Verify from who that email came from. Call
Sure.
them, talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a colleague just reach out to me because somebody from Australia reached out to her wanting her to be on a dissertation committee. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I don't know, Henry, is this a phishing attempt? And so I gave her a great breakdown of it. I said, well,
Yeah.
first off, I can find this person, I can find this university online, I can find
Mm-hmm.
this person on the university's website, I can find the student on this university's website. So that
Mm-hmm.
leads to the probability that it's legitimate. Now,
Mm-hmm.
however, let's also talk about the fact that I can actually use AI to generate that,
Mm-hmm.
and that creates a new problem. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to ask questions like, well, what about my expertise is it that they want?
Mm-hmm.
The paper was a cybersecurity ethics paper, and she's not a cybersecurity person.
Uh-huh.
I tend to be on her committees when she has a student who has a cyber-ish type topic because
Mm-hmm.
of my expertise.
Sure.
And although she has written a couple of papers about cyber ethics. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that researcher in Australia saw her on ResearchGate and picked her that way. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, well, okay, what else? What else? And I always say is, hey, go beyond that and really question, you know, you're offering to pay me an honorarium. Is that normal? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
normally it's not. If somebody wants me to be a external advisor on a doctoral thesis, I
Mm-hmm.
do it because I want to support the students and support the community, not because I think I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
And so in this particular case, there are flags. Make me think, it looks legitimate, but maybe it's not still.
Okay.
And so what I told her in that case is I said, you can try to verify who this person is.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is if you call the phone number on the website, if it's faked, you're going to get the person and they're going to know it.
Yeah.
So there's a problem. I
Mm-hmm.
said, so the best approach is to find somebody that who lives in that general area or whatever, who will know whether or not that university truly exists
Mm-hmm.
and may or may not know that individual.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing a validation technique of validating that the information you've been given is actually true or not. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the best way to defend yourself in these kind of cases. When you get an email and you're really just, I wasn't expecting it, I'm not really sure,
Mm-hmm.
verify, validate
Sure.
everything. Go to the end limit. And in
Mm-hmm.
truth, always err on the side of caution. If you can't prove to yourself with a reasonable amount of certainty that it is legitimate, then
Mm-hmm.
consider it an attack and disregard. I mean, I used to get at my previous institution, I would get emails all the time from these people wanting to be online teaching professors for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the very first one I got, something was off on it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't look at it. I didn't respond. I didn't download their CV. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like, yeah, I don't know about this. And
Sure.
it literally was like, Dr. Jones Bartlett at gmail.com was their
Mm-hmm.
email address.
Okay. Yeah.
The next day I got another email that looked almost exactly the same from a
Yeah.
different person. This was
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Sam Smith at gmail.com. And I
Mm-hmm.
went, okay. And then I started
Yeah.
comparing the two emails and I saw the similarities and I said, yeah, this is an
Yeah.
attempt to gain access to our network to use it
Wow.
in an attack method.
Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh. Yeah.
I got those emails every week for
Oh man.
5 years. And I would
Yeah.
just delete, delete, delete.
Really.
And I'm thinking to
Mm-hmm.
myself, I've never responded to you. You might as well stop emailing me because I'm not going to
Yeah.
respond to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't
Save us
quit.
both some
They don't
time.
give up
Yeah.
because they only
Yeah.
need to get one.
Had that
Yep.
recently too. I mean, everything was okay, but my boss had forwarded me a voicemail just to listen to, but it just seemed a little not normal.
Yep.
So I'm very close with my team, which is wonderful. So I could just text her and ask, "Hey, did you mean to forward that to me? did you forward me a voicemail? And it was legitimate, but again, it was just like you said, always verify. I hope our IT department is listening because I just want them to know that I did a really good job here. You mentioned the grandparent scheme. That actually happened to my grandfather, and I was always really proud of how he responded. But he had that happen to, and a person said, "It's your grandson," and he went, "That's the tip off right off there." My grandson would never use the word grandson. So I can't even imagine in today's day and age of finding the content and replicating my cousin's voice. My grandfather was always really sharp and on top of it and up to date on technology, but I can't even imagine how he would have responded with AI tools today.
No, it's
Yeah.
scary, and that's a high effective attack. I was actually
Hmm.
recently at an auto dealership getting service done on my car, and I was talking to an elderly gentleman about it because anytime I get a chance to talk to somebody who could become a victim, I
Hmm.
try to make sure I teach them what they should do.
Sure.
And this other person who was nearby overheard it. He goes, "Yeah, my grandmother got that attack, and
Oof.
she fell victim to it, and she lost like $1,500."
Oh man.
I'm
Yeah.
like, when you're living on a fixed income, $1,500 is a lot of money.
That's a lot. Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, but as a grandparent,
Yeah.
you'll sacrifice that for your grandchild
Yeah,
without thinking
absolutely.
twice.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, so it's a poignant perspective is, you always have to be aware. You always have to be
Absolutely.
cautious.
Hmm.
I like to tell people I have just enough paranoia to think that there could be an attack around the corner, but no, just enough common sense to know that they're not all attacks.
How many times have you seen where it's manipulated and
Hmm.
what, anybody could fall for? I certainly don't want to be doing something that's going to impact my other family members.
Correct. Yeah. And I most certainly don't talk about certain things in my life that put me at
Hmm.
high risk.
Hmm. Yeah.
Anybody reading my actual bio off of our website will know that I'm in the military.
Hmm.
Nobody on social media knows that I'm in the military at
Hmm.
all. I don't ever talk about it. I don't ever respond to any military comments or posts or anything like that
Hmm.
because being in the military, being in cybersecurity puts me at a significantly higher risk of being attacked.
Hmm.
And so I just
Yeah.
don't want it. I
Sure.
don't
No,
need
of
the
course.
headache. Um,
Absolutely. I don't want to have to look over my shoulder. I mean, I do look over my shoulder, but
yeah,
there's a whole other, anxious and being on tenterhooks feeling that you don't certainly want that. Yeah.
exactly.
I get that.
Exactly.
How concerned should organizations be? Because I mean, we kind of broached about individuals really need to be cognizant, but organizations, how could they? What should they be doing about these AI generated phishing attempts? Or is it really the lines are very, very close? Is there something different when they're going after a person versus an organization, or is it the same?
Well, no, it's pretty much the same because if I'm going after an organization, how am I going to get into that organization? Through a person.
Hmm.
So I'm going to find an employee and I'm going to target that employee,
Hmm.
and that's how I'm going to gain access. So it's imperative that, industry, business and industry and organizations, they really do a much better job of helping their employees be more secure.
Hmm.
Now, in the world of cybersecurity, the historical method of securing people has been information awareness training that you do every single year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will tell you that that is about as effective as vinegar catching flies. And
Okay.
the reason why I say that is
Yeah.
because all it does is throw a whole bunch of information at you and then basically says, good luck. When you
Yeah.
fail, we will fire you. So I think as an industry, we need to change the way we approach the human component. We
Hmm.
need to understand that it's a multifaceted threat, that
Hmm.
everybody is unique and everybody is different.
Hmm.
And assessing people on a 20-question quiz at the end of an hour or 30-minute long presentation where literally they can Google all of the answers, so they're not actually learning anything,
Hmm.
does not actually give you a good measure of somebody's susceptibility.
Hmm.
I think we need to take the approach of developing new information awareness training that incorporates psychological techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy that
Hmm.
actually do change people's behavior
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then implementing it in a manner where it is not so negative from the perspective.
Hmm.
I'd be like, hey, do your information awareness training, take the test. This isn't, oh my God, gotcha
Yeah.
scenario. I don't
Yeah.
care what your score is. If you get a
Hmm.
20, great. The test will tell me other things about you that I need to know, which are
Yeah.
what specific behaviors you have that
Hmm.
influence you.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, I've developed a form of that kind of assessment that I call the dynamic adaptable IA training assessment tool, which literally
Mm-hmm.
has a series of behavioral questions, then a series of social media usage questions, and then
Mm-hmm.
a series of information security questions. And when you
Okay.
get to the end, it gives me granular detail about which people are at most risk
Mm-hmm.
and what areas they are most risky at.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell who tends to be a little more distracted than somebody else, who tends to be more preoccupied, who
Mm-hmm.
tends to put their entire life out on social media because they have every social media account and they post every 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All of those things increase
Yeah.
the probability that somebody is going to be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
When you incorporate all of that, you can identify a new way of measuring it and
Mm-hmm.
assessing, and then you can identify ways to improve that person's resistance to becoming a victim by providing additional training opportunities that
Okay.
will
Yeah.
help support the areas that they need to do.
Yeah.
So,
So it should be personalized, is what you're saying. So really,
yeah,
no one thing fits all,
it
no
does
checkbox kind
not.
of thing. Yeah.
It does not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny the way the cybersecurity community approaches it is from the
Mm-hmm.
technical perspective. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to deal with the person.
Yeah.
And that has to do with who we are in the world
Yeah.
of cybersecurity and how we
Mm-hmm.
think. We have very logical minds. We don't want to deal with the emotional component. We don't want to deal with the behavioral component. We just want to deal with the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Early in my research, I was maybe one of 5 or 6 people doing the kind of research that I do when I first started about a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always get, when I would submit a paper to a journal, the first comment would be, get off the human bandwagon and find a technical solution to this problem. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
truth of the matter is there is no technical solution that stops a stupid decision,
Yeah.
you know?
That's
And
good.
I say it that way intentionally. When
Mm-hmm.
you fall victim, you made a bad decision.
Yeah.
It was, in essence, stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're a
Yeah.
stupid person. You just
Mm-hmm.
made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So I think our community needs to change it. And fortunately, I've seen over the last decade a significant growth over the years of people who are starting to see what I've been talking about and doing the research that I'm doing. Now I
Mm-hmm.
would have to say there's probably 25, maybe 30 of us that are doing it.
Yeah.
I've had the honor and privilege of mentoring several individuals in their doctoral programs and be on several committees where I'm evaluating theses that talk about topics like this all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
That's really compelling, keeping humans at the center of cybersecurity and therefore AI development. And it makes me think about the flip side of that. Because while we're focused on how humans guide AI, there's a growing concern that AI might be outpacing human capabilities in some dangerous ways. There's been discussion about AI systems that can automatically discover and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities, essentially finding and attacking weaknesses faster than any human could. Are we approaching a point where attackers can operate at a scale at a speed that actually outpaces human defenders?
So over the years, what we see is a kind of a push and shove between the
Mm-hmm.
attackers and the defenders, right?
Yeah.
The defenders will come up with a solution that will stop various types of attacks, and then the threat actors will come up with a new way around it. They're
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For
constantly
whack-a-mole.
finding new
Yeah.
ways.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, it's literally
Yeah,
whack-a-mole.
that's I have to associate it with a visual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
since they're using AI in a method to attack us, we've
Mm-hmm.
actually done a lot in the last few years of trying to incorporate AI and machine learning techniques in the defense measures. I can
Mm-hmm.
use it to automate so much stuff. I can use it to analyze hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of emails and
Mm-hmm.
assess the validity of the emails. So,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically, the spam filter should be so much better and should catch them more.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're seeing these changes. We're seeing the push and the shove.
Yeah.
As we move further into this environment, it'll become more and more clear that humans alone cannot do it. We need to incorporate AI. We need to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate other tools. We need to understand what the next generation is. When
Mm-hmm.
quantum computing comes out, that is
Yeah.
going to turn the cybersecurity environment upside down
Okay.
because
Yeah.
all encryption will be useless at that point.
Wow.
A quantum computer can break,
Yeah.
would be able to, they theorize, would be able to break any level of encryption within about 30 seconds.
That's honestly terrifying to think about. So, if quantum computing is going to render our current encryption obsolete, what does that mean for everything we're doing right now?
To come up with new forms of,
Yeah.
encryption that are less likely to be breached by quantum
Yeah.
computing. But
Sure.
it's one of those
Okay.
things where, we deal with these changes all the time, and we're
Hmm.
used to it,
We're used to it. Okay.
It's a reason why I don't have any hair. I'm always ripping out what little hair I have when something
Yeah.
else pops up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I get it.
and one of the other things we're seeing is threat actors are recycling old attacks. And
Hmm.
those old attacks are coming back and they're being successful as well.
Hmm.
The WannaCry attack that was recycled recently, and it was pretty
Hmm.
effective on its second bout, even though we had defense measures in place because they
Yeah.
changed it. They
Yeah.
changed it just every bit so slightly to make it more effective.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And now with AI, it takes them
Hmm.
about 30, 40 seconds to do that.
Even quicker than before. Yeah.
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 I mean, I literally have
Yeah.
used AI to generate code
Hmm.
that could be used to attack a system if I chose to. And
Wow.
I did
Okay.
it because I
Yeah.
wanted to see what it would kick out. And I was
Hmm.
very impressed with what it kicked out. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, okay,
Wow.
I can see how
Yeah.
this has a high probability of being successful.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
it's it's looking at things that a human isn't going to look at. It's going to do it in a
Sure.
way that a human doesn't do it.
Yeah.
But we're going to always need the human component of it because AI
Hmm.
itself, as wonderful and as powerful as it is
Hmm.
simply a data analysis tool. It looks at
Okay.
large amounts of data and it puts
Hmm.
together streams of thought, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it doesn't have conscious thought. It can't think beyond the data. It can't predict.
Yeah.
I can use it to help me with my predictions, but it can't actually do a true prediction as of right
Hmm.
now. At
Okay.
least not that
Yeah.
I'm aware of and not that I've experienced.
Yeah. I mean, we painted a pretty concerning picture about the threat landscape. I think we've given threat actors enough ammo on how to do things.
Hmm.
But let's go back to what you were saying in terms of defense. I mean, you
Hmm.
you brought up, AI being able to scan hundreds, thousands, millions of emails that could be analyzed far quicker than the human nature. So, how can cybersecurity professionals use AI as a defensive tool, or are we pretty limited?
We're only limited by our
Mhm.
own ingenuity, truthfully.
Okay.
If I'm as a human, I can think of something, I can get AI to do it, right?
Hmm.
If it's a task.
Hmm.
And I can get it to do it quicker than I could.
Hmm.
So, I could use AI to do malware analysis where I receive a file that I suspect has malware in it, but it doesn't flag. I
Hmm.
can have AI break it down to its
Okay.
components and
Hmm.
identify the probability that it is malicious.
Hmm.
And that's huge because normally that takes a really long time for a human to do that, but AI can do it in a matter of minutes in comparison to hours or hours.
Okay.
Um, that's one area. We
Hmm.
can also use it to monitor network traffic and identify anomalies at a much faster rate. So I
Okay.
see something that seems off, that it's like doesn't make any sense, right? So if
Hmm.
I'm a company and my company is a 9 to 5 on the East Coast type scenario, yet
Hmm.
my AI is seeing that at 2 a.m. large amounts of data are being downloaded. Wait,
Hmm.
wait, wait. Who's up at 2 a.m. downloading my data?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it real or is it a threat?
Hmm.
And AI can identify that and flag it so further investigation can be done,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Those are just some of the things that we can use AI for. But truly, it comes down to, that's where the human piece needs to be there. We need that ingenuity.
Hmm.
AI cannot think. It cannot come up with its own creative idea.
Hmm.
Humans can. And
Hmm.
it's that creativity that makes us good at what we do.
That's a great point. Human creativity is our secret weapon. But here's what I find fascinating about that. If creativity and adaptability are what make human defenders so effective, what happens when the systems we're relying on, like the AI itself, becomes the target? I've been reading about attacks on AI models themselves, like poisoning training data or using adversarial inputs to fool the system. Can AI be attacked within its own code? And if so, doesn't that undermine the very tools we're depending on?
Yeah,
Is the
that
way I
is a
think about
very that's a
it.
very good question.
Mhm.
Um, and we've already seen where people are using AI to attack AI.
Mhm.
ChatGPT a few years ago was hacked by ChatGPT. And
Yeah. Wow.
a
Yeah.
simple way to prevent that is the
Hmm.
coders of ChatGPT should have said, don't ever hack yourself.
Don't ever hack yourself. Sounds like
I
a
mean,
t-shirt.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think if we, as they're working and they're developing AI, they go in and they create a set of ethical rules, we'll call it, right? That
Hmm.
AI is how it's supposed to operate.
Hmm.
Basically, we could go in and tell AI, don't create malware code,
Hmm.
don't create attacks,
Hmm.
don't create social engineering. If it's has these attributes, it's a social engineering attack. Don't create that.
Hmm.
Don't, you know, do any of that kind of stuff. That's
Hmm.
one way we can work to try to defend AI itself,
Hmm.
because then it won't, develop those things that's currently being used to develop and being used as threats.
Hmm.
So I think it comes down to the coding teams,
Hmm.
whether it's OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, you name it.
Hmm.
They need to make sure that their coding teams have an ethical boundaries
Hmm.
committee that talks about
Yeah.
what should we allow AI to do and what should we prevent it from doing.
Hmm.
I am never been and never will be of the mind that AI should be made fully
Yeah.
conscious and then let go.
Hmm.
Should not do that. I mean, I'm a kid from the 80s, so
I
when I
know.
talk about that, Skynet's number
I
one.
know. That's the quintessential thing that everyone brings up. My husband
Yeah,
loves to bring that up.
yeah. You got
Yeah.
Skynet from the Terminator
I
series. You
know.
have HAL from the 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Hmm.
When when AI becomes conscious, it's
Yeah.
okay. Something
Yeah.
might not go right. So
Hmm.
we do need to limit what we get AI to do.
Hmm.
And it's not a matter of if we should do something or can we do something. It's should we do something?
Hmm. Hmm.
Should we allow AI to get to that point? Should
Yeah.
we? What are the
Should have.
ramifications? And that's where that
Yeah.
ethical committee would come into play and go, well,
Hmm.
if we do this, this is what AI could do. What is
Hmm.
the risk? What are the threats? And do we want that?
Hmm. Yeah, so that looks like the coding teams themselves have to have some type of guardrails put within
Hmm.
the models.
Yeah.
But
And,
I mean,
and that
yeah,
creates a problem because,
yeah.
we here in the United States might have one perspective. They might have a
Hmm.
different perspective in the United Kingdom and Germany and France. They might
Hmm.
have an entirely different one in Iran,
Hmm.
North Korea, China,
Yeah.
Russia.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
although we might put those boundaries in, they might not.
Hmm.
So, we might end up
Yeah.
with it irregardless.
Absolutely. And that lack of international alignment is going to create some real complications. But even setting aside the policy questions for a moment, just from a purely technical standpoint, how secure can we actually make these AI models? Is there such a thing as an unbreakable AI system?
Anything that is ever created by a person can
Hmm.
be broken down by another person. It's
Hmm.
just a matter of um, timing. It's a matter of approach. It's a matter
Hmm.
of, I'm not going to call it intelligence, but thought process,
Hmm.
right? And it's also a matter of how the people think.
Hmm.
And I'll give you a great example. There are individuals in our society, we call them savants, that are just like absolute geniuses in
Yeah.
various areas.
Hmm.
They might have social issues that go along with being that savant,
Hmm.
but they can do it. And if we go back to things like there was a movie back in the day, Mercury Rising, where about a little boy who basically cracked an encryption code, and
Hmm.
his family was attacked and by I think it was the NSA or whatever. you
Yeah.
know
Hmm.
there are people like that. So no matter how good we create something,
Yeah.
if a human created it, some another human can't figure out how to disassemble it.
Hmm.
And it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of
Yeah. It's a
when.
matter of time. Yeah.
It's no different than, if you're
Right.
on the
Yeah.
internet and you're using a VPN and you think that you are totally untraceable on the internet. Truth of
Hmm.
the matter is that is not true. It's
Hmm.
just a lot harder to find you. And if they
Yeah.
want to find you and they want to put the effort in to find you, they will find you.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't do anything illegal online.
Don't do anything illegal online. That would make another really good t-shirt. So we're always in this arms race where defenses get stronger and attacks get more sophisticated and the cycle continues. Which brings me to what's coming next in this race. What emerging trends or technologies do you see that could tip the scales one way or the other? What should people be preparing for?
So what we're starting to see is I think what we need to do is really develop the students for them to know how to use AI as a tool, to
Mm-hmm.
teach them what it means to use AI as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
We've run into back, when AI first came out, ChatGPT first came out, we saw a rash of papers that all of a sudden had a very high probability of having been written by
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so they developed these two tools, GPT-0 and Zero GPT, to detect AI written technology.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I did a study on those two tools, and their efficacy rate's at about 50%. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
trust them.
Sure.
But it's one of those things where it's like, well, okay, well, had we started teaching students before that came out how to properly use AI, maybe we would have seen less of that.
Mm-hmm.
And simple things like teaching a student, hey, use AI to ask it to find you sources, ask
Mm-hmm.
it to uh, create an outline for your
Mm-hmm.
paper, ask it to review a snippet that you've written and make recommendations to make it stronger, make it more effective, make it more poignant, those
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, and
Yeah.
then implement them in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If we do those kind of things, we teach them, then that's giving them the skills that they need to be successful when they go beyond.
Absolutely. Teaching students how to use AI rather than teaching them about AI is crucial. So tell me about how that philosophy plays out here at Thomas Edison. How does the Thomas Edison cybersecurity curriculum prepare students to actually think and work this way?
We make
Mm-hmm.
sure that our curriculum is current, up to date, it's not 10
Mm-hmm.
years out of whack, right? Start
Mm-hmm.
off right there.
Mm-hmm.
But we also want to make sure it's rigorous. What I,
Mm-hmm.
what I what I don't want is somebody who will never be successful in cybersecurity trying to come into cybersecurity because it's the hot topic and you might make $150,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have the right mentality, if you don't have the right approach, the
Mm-hmm.
right motivation, you will not be successful. So
Certain
somebody
psychological
who
behaviors. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a technology background, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have a logical mindset, has a higher probability of not being successful than somebody that does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my experience for the last 16 odd
Yeah.
years teaching cybersecurity and seeing students. I've had students come into a
Yeah.
program who were literally, an English major wanting to go into cyber because it was cool and you can make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And you throw them into a class where they actually have to go in and do some coding or do some terminal command line management
Mm-hmm.
or something, and they get just completely razzled by it because they don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's when you have that hard conversation and say, this might not be the field for you,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's
So
just making
many.
sure
Yeah.
we identify students who can be successful, who should be successful, and help
Mm-hmm.
supporting them be successful. Make sure that that curriculum is rigorous. I
Mm-hmm.
want it to be tough. I want it to be hard,
To develop.
because
They're
if
developing.
I'm if
Mm-hmm.
I make it too easy, you're not going to be prepared to see the threat that's coming down the pipe. You
That's a good
know,
point. Yeah. Yeah.
I have people all the time say to me, "Oh, well, can I learn everything about cybersecurity on YouTube?" Yeah, no, not really. You can learn
Yeah.
some really cool techniques. I can
Mm-hmm.
teach you on a YouTube video how to do a task.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But I'm not teaching you how to think beyond that task in this video. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we need. I
Yeah.
need to I need to understand how somebody might take that WannaCry virus and change it in the future to bring it back a third time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
see that and predict it.
Yeah.
So what I really love the idea of is we push more of what's called the cyber threat intelligence perspective, which is about
Mm-hmm.
predictive analytics. It's
Mm-hmm.
predicting what is the next threat based on your
Yeah.
current threats that you have. What is
Mm-hmm.
the probability, and then
Yeah.
you go from there.
Yeah.
So if we prepare our students to do that, I think we'll do really successful.
Fantastic.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think Thomas Edison students do a great job at that. I had the privilege last night at the awards ceremony to meet
Mm-hmm.
one of the students that's in my school, and I had a nice long
Mm-hmm.
conversation with her,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
she I think she's going to do great,
Mm-hmm.
great when
That's great. Oh, that's
when she
wonderful. Yeah.
graduates.
That's great.
I
Yeah.
made sure to make sure she had my email. I said, reach out
Yeah.
anytime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to mentor you.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
fantastic. Yeah.
she's already reached out. So I mean, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
which
Yeah.
is kind of funny because students go, "Oh my God, I don't want to talk to the dean." I get it. I'm looking very much forward to seeing her career
Mm-hmm.
progression. For me as an educator,
Mm-hmm.
I never judge my success on how many papers I publish, how many presentations I give, how many
Mm-hmm.
talks I give, any of that. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of that. I have to
Mm-hmm.
do that stuff because that's a professional requirement.
Mm-hmm.
I judge my success on how my students are successful when they leave the program and they go into the workforce. What are the things that they're doing? What are the jobs that they're getting? What are the
Mm-hmm.
certifications they're grabbing? What
Mm-hmm.
are the advancements? I want to make sure that our programs here are supportive like that for the
Mm-hmm.
students and that they can
Yeah.
be successful, that they think beyond the problem, that they become that next generation of innovative cybersecurity specialists
Mm-hmm.
who can help defend us.
I had my last question about, in terms of wrapping up, to tie everything together, was to say, if a student came to you today saying they wanted to make a real impact in cybersecurity, what would you tell them and the path forward? But I feel like you just answered that. I mean, you're talking
Yeah.
them to be innovation, forward thinking, taking that logical background, which should already be within their personality, and developing that and molding them further.
Exactly,
It sounds
exactly.
right. Yeah.
And I would go a step further. When I
Mm-hmm.
talk to students and they ask me about coming into cyber, I always tell them, I said, first and foremost, if you're joining cybersecurity, you need to understand one thing. You
Mm-hmm.
are going to fail far more often than you're ever going to succeed. That's life. Get over it, move on, find the next solution that hopefully solves that problem.
All right. Yeah.
And that has to do
It's
with the
good life
fact that
skill too.
they're so complex, right? I tell them, don't ever think of failure as failure. Think of it as a learning opportunity. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what the outcome is, what did you
Yeah.
learn and how can you change and how can you adapt? You have to be very, very resilient and resistant to be in cybersecurity. I also tell students that you have to be creative. And that is something that is very difficult for most people who are really, truly good at
The logical
cybersecurity
mind. Mm-hmm.
because of that logical mind. One of the things about the cybersecurity community is we see a lot of students, they fall into the category of a neurodiverse student.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them excel so wonderfully, and I love it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite students was a young man,
Mm-hmm.
and he was my favorite student at the time because literally he would come and he would ask the most unique questions that
Yeah.
nobody else would even think about.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have long conversations about these different topics.
Mm-hmm.
And he now currently works for a 3-letter agency doing a really great job.
That's awesome.
And so when I see students like that succeed, I'm just
Yeah.
like, that is why I do what I do. And I
Sure.
want them to succeed. And
Mhm.
creativity comes in so many different forms, right? Because it allows me the ability to be creative when I'm trying to solve a problem. I can think
Mhm.
beyond. I can think outside of the box. I
Yeah.
can think around the box. I can push the box out of the way. Heck, I can look inside of the box. And that's what I teach students to do all the time. One of my favorite exercises when I
Mhm.
teach in in-person classes, I'll put a cup of coffee on the table and I'll tell the students, tell me how to empty that cup.
Mhm.
And you get the students, oh, tip it over. Yep. Okay. Drink it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Sure. Suck it out with a siphon. Well, that's a little more creative. Okay.
Yeah.
It's when the student looks at
Yeah.
me and goes, shoot it with a laser beam.
Yeah.
There we go. Now you're thinking. Now
That's
you're
great.
thinking.
Yeah.
And so it's a great experience, a great opportunity, and I love seeing the students grow.
I love that example. It shows that sometimes the solution isn't more sophisticated, it's just different. And that kind of wisdom, like knowing when to pivot, when to try something unconventional, I imagine having someone guide you through that kind of thinking, especially early in your career, makes a huge difference. How critical is mentorship in developing that kind of creative problem solving mindset?
And it's really, really important because, again, in the world of cybersecurity, the only people that can actually mentor us successfully are other people in the world of cybersecurity
Mm-hmm.
because we are unique. We are different.
Yeah.
We do think
Mm-hmm.
a little differently than most people, and we approach things from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a blessing at times as well as a curse. But
Mm-hmm.
it's what we need to do, and I'm always talking to students about that, about being those good mentors.
Yeah.
Because the people coming up in the career,
Mm-hmm.
right? They look for that. They need that. They want
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
They want somebody that they can call and ask him a question.
Mm-hmm.
Run a problem
Sure.
by. When
Yeah.
I run into
Another
something and I'm
perspective. Absolutely. Yeah.
exactly when I'm running
Mm-hmm.
into something and I'm struggling to try to figure it out, I don't bang my head against my keyboard. I pick up my
Mm-hmm.
phone and call one of my peers.
Yeah.
Hey, you ever run into this dude? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and they might not have the answer, but they oftentimes help me figure it out.
Great.
And that's what we should be doing. One of the things that students used to tell me is they loved the fact that I would teach them lessons that weren't in the curriculum. And a lot of it was teaching them how to be successful in the industry. And I would talk about so many different things, and students are like, what? I'd be like, yeah, so as a computer person, you're going to pull cables. That's life.
Yeah.
I pulled thousands of them.
Sure.
You know what? There is nothing more interesting than crawling around in a dirt crawl space underneath somebody's building, house, office, whatever, and you turn a corner and there's a possum looking at you smiling with their sharp teeth.
Oh, geez. Oh, that just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Yeah.
I'm like, thank God I never came across a skunk.
Yes.
But I've met many a possum. I've met many a squirrel. I've seen a lot of those. Yeah, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Because that's the reality, right? You can study all the theory you want, but then you're out there pulling cables and dealing with wildlife and all kinds of chaos. And that actually makes me think. We've talked about a lot today, but the field is obviously so vast. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you think deserves attention? Any aspect of AI and cybersecurity we should have explored?
I guess the only real thing I would say is if you're thinking about a career in cybersecurity, find somebody who's in cybersecurity and talk to them before you make that leap. Make sure it's truly what you want. In the world of cybersecurity, we experience things that the average person doesn't. And whether you're a cybersecurity pen tester, whether you are a data analyst within cybersecurity, whether you are a digital forensics, right? You're going to experience things that the average person in your community will never experience. And always, always, always make sure you work on taking care of your own mental health. That's hugely important because it can cause a drain on you because you are going to see things that nobody else ever sees that are going to change who you are.
That's such an important reminder. This field can be intense and burnout is real. Taking care of your mental health isn't optional. It's really essential. And I'm glad you brought that up because students listening should know that we have resources right here on campus. Thomas Edison's Counseling and Wellness Services is available to support students who are dealing with stress, burnout, or just need someone to talk to. It's a resource that's there for you.
It absolutely is. And I highly recommend students always take advantage of that because when you're a student, you're facing certain stressors and, you might be getting ready, cramming for a midterm and you might be struggling because there might be something going on in your life. You know what? Sit down, talk with somebody, have a conversation, use that resource. They will help you. They will help you understand and help you develop a path forward. And, don't think you're a burden. I really don't think you're a burden.
That's a perfect note to end on. Dr. Collier, thank you so very much for this.
You're welcome.
This is fantastic. We are grateful to Dr. Collier for breaking down such complex topics in AI and cybersecurity and giving us a real look at both the challenges and opportunities ahead. Learn more about our cybersecurity programs on the TESU.edu website. Thank you for listening to Edison Soundstage. This podcast was produced by Thomas Edison State University.